Well, it's seriously unlikely that you forgot, but just in case you did, today is the day, guys. Today is the day that A Crack in the Ice came out. It is live as of me posting this video, and that comes with a bunch of new story and a load of other good stuff. I have a bunch of different videos talking about what they have done. This is probably my favorite new map that they have added so far, especially with this season, and there's some ridiculously cool things going on. This video specifically, though, is not going to have any spoilers in it. So the story continuation right now is pushing us beyond the far Shiver Peaks, or into the far Shiver Peaks. We're looking at new activities and movements of Jormag, the Elder Dragon of Ice, and there is a lot of cool things to talk about, but absolutely none of that will appear here. Just go enjoy the story for yourselves if you like, or check in on my channel over the next couple of days where I'll be talking about all that stuff at that point. Beyond that, just beyond the big new story stuff though, there is a new open world map. The borders of the world have expanded once again. This is happening with dizzying speed right now, which is excellent, exactly what I want from Guild Wars. There's too many places we need to go, and so getting these maps out at some decent pace is really important to me. This is the Bitterfrost Frontier. It's a beautiful map, particularly one area, a giant frozen forest that reminds me of the Echo Vald. It has really taken my breath away. It's really, truly beautiful. On the trailers around pre-release, you might have heard me talking about, I was a little worried this map would just be more mountains and more of much of the stuff, same stuff we've seen before. Well, actually, no. There's a lot of new assets, a lot of fresh stuff going on there, and it is awesome. This thing's around the same size as Ember Bay was, about the same shape too, these kind of little rectangles. I wonder if all the maps with Living World are going to be roughly this size, like this is the size that they're actually capable of putting out in a reasonable time frame. There's another perk, by the way, of the maps being a little bit smaller, and that's the way that mega servers work and the actual maximum number of players that can exist in any given space in Guild Wars. The Heart of Thorns maps, for example, are beautiful and awesome, but always feel a lot more empty than they actually are, just because they're so big and there's only a certain number of players that can exist on them. So maybe having maps around this size isn't too bad. I describe it as a medium-sized map. For those out of the loop, this represents the third release in Living World Season 3 and the third new map that has been added. This now puts Season 3 ahead of the other two seasons of Living World. Season 1 did add some new locations, but some of them were quite small and they got removed very quickly. Season 2, only over 8 updates managed to introduce 2 maps, and now we've already sort of overtaken that. It's located directly north of Frostgorge Sound. Like I said, the far Shiver Peaks, and the best thing about it, it does have a real normal portal entrance to the location. It's not some weird separate place you have to use a scroll to get to or go through in a sewer gate and otherwise it's sealed off everywhere. It is directly there. It's like Frostgorge Sound now has a portal there that for 4 years since the release of the game was always just a wall, and it feels continuous. It's awesome. The map mixes a bit of underwater content into it, not too much. I absolutely recommend, if you're going to play this patch, go into your audio settings, redefault that stuff, get the music back, get out of TS, get out of Skype, full screen the game, take your time, listen to some of the awesome lore and things that are going on there. So I do have a full dedicated video. The link's on screen right now if you want to click it, where I will talk purely about that map. I will show you a new type of seaweed salad, a potential aura enhancement that's gone in the game, the first new enhancement they've ever added, a new system for precursor rolling, as well as some other cool things. I even have a video of a very immersive tour of that map with no commentary, so you can just watch and enjoy and see whether, you know, Guild Wars is starting to add the kind of environments you like. Also, which you can check out too just from clicking that link on my second channel. That's it for the new map. On this one though, there's other things on the patch I want to run to. So usually when a Living World update comes out, we can talk a lot about PvP based stuff, and as you guys know, hopefully we're going into season 5 for PvP at some point, and we know there's going to be a lot of changes there. We know that they've talked big about how it's supposed to really represent skill instead of time played. I, for example, am a player who's had multiple legendaries but probably don't deserve to be legendary rank in PvP, and they're trying to assess that kind of stuff. Despite all of this, there is nothing happening with this patch for PvP at all. There's very little competitive stuff. There is no balance change happening here. It seems like instead of pairing this stuff off, they're sort of splitting them away. So we get a new PvE map. There is no PvP map on this one, but I think it's because they're sort of going to get their own things, just whatever makes the most logical sense at the time. So none of that will appear in this video, and hey, I suppose that's a good thing for those of you who don't give a crap about Guild Wars 2's competitive prospects. which, let's face it, is quite a few people. Moving on, let's talk about something pretty big. We talked about a bit pre-release. There's a new legendary. I won't go into the whole rigmarole of the fact that, yes, Guild Wars 2 is getting new legendaries now. This is the second one that's come in. We had a new legendary last patch, the return of them with Rising Flames. We had a very fiery-based mace. This patch, we get a very icy legendary shield. So the Heart of Thorns shield has now arrived. It's a quaggan in a fishbowl called Shushadu. And it is okay, alright? It's crafted in a very similar way to the mace from last patch, which is much more simplistic than you may have first seen, but this thing's got a lot of character. You guys know how they did the Chukwu and Champawat collections and stories to get it? You know how they did the Nevermore stuff with the Raven? I really can't help but imagine the developers in a room before Heart of Thorns came out, and they concepted all these things out, Chukwu and Champawat, Nevermore, and this guy, and they probably originally did envision some big, long story an adventure to acquire him and become his good friend or whatever and feel a real attachment. All of that stuff we don't get. We do get the more boiled down experience. That must have killed them to cut that stuff away, but there are many perks to the fact, obviously, we're getting legendaries come back in. In fact, as a little update on the mace, which I haven't really talked about since a couple of months back when Rising Flames came in, that mace is super rare. Chukwu and Champawat too is super rare. I think what we're seeing is something quite cool, actually. Because they're adding these legendaries quite frequently now, and they seem to be coming in, people don't have that much time to make them because they are really difficult. And we're seeing them start to become these really special, uncommonly spotted entities that legendaries were back in 2012 and around the launch of Guild Wars 2. If you made this quaggan in a fishbowl, you probably would feel quite special because I'm not anticipating seeing that many people with it. I only just these days start to see a few more people with Chukwu and Champawat. And I always put that down to the fact it was the short bow, but maybe it's just that the more legendaries they put in, the player base can't keep up with them. It's not like we've just had 4 years to make the same couple of items, which was the situation we used to be in. There's now loads of them. So yeah, that's Shushadu. It's a bit icy than I expected, which totally matches the patch. We've got an icy patch with Shushadu. We had a fiery patch with Eureka. And you know what? The one thing I will say, I kind of like it. I ragged on this thing hard. I ragged on it hard. I ragged on the script hard recently. I kind of like it. Not because suddenly I'm in love with the quaggan, though they are kind of cool, all right? The reason I quite like this is because I've noticed running around, look at this footage, right? Running around, doesn't that, guys, remind you of Eject Sphere? It totally does. And for that reason, I kind of like it. All right, so that's the new legendary. Let's talk very briefly about general changes. Some of these are a little bit boring, but depending on how you play, you'll be affected differently. So we got the new legendary. They did update the old legendary shield to Flameseeker Prophecies. So these things have projectiles on them, right? If you're a Revenant, for example, your skill 4 will throw the shield. Now, if you've got the new legendary, you kind of throw it like a discus, like a spinning discus, and that's pretty fun, I suppose. You're literally throwing a quaggan at someone. But what about with Flameseeker Prophecies? They updated it. Now it's like a spectral floating little book that moves around. It's very similar to, it reminds me a bit of what some of the Ascalon monk ghosts use, and it reminds me a little bit of Guardians back when they used to have tomes. So that's a new update that's gone into the old shield, and I guess there's something for all shield users with this patch. Kind of nice. Another change that went through, nothing to do with legendaries this time. Players who disconnect while holding a bundle will now drop the bundle. You might have read this on the patch notes and thought, what the hell does this mean? Well, the reason I'm talking about it today is I kind of want to explain why this was important. This was actually a huge, like, troll potential area of the game and could be a big problem for certain events and things. So you will have noticed in Heart of Thorns, they started adding events where you grab items from far away and you throw them closer to your objective, where your friends can then pick them up and then are supposed to hand them into some NPC or something. Well, the way that the game worked before is if you picked an item up, like a bundle, and then logged out, you would delete that bundle, no matter what it was. Some guildies of mine and I, we used to troll each other by picking up one another's banners and then leaving the dungeon, or just logging out, going to character select, and you will delete a warrior's banner. And Guild Wars has always tried so hard to stop little things like this happening. It's kind of crazy to me that it takes till 2016 for this to have been removed. Another little thing, as ever, I'm just picking my favorite of the patch notes. Creatures in Bloodstone Fen will no longer be able to throw rocks at flying players 6,000 units away. their range has been reduced to 2,000 units. Alright, so that reads hilarious. If you guys don't know, 6,000 units is massive. The most you're probably going to be casting your own abilities on as a player in regular combat is 1,500 range, and even that's rare, okay? That's like longbow rangers kind of stuff, or the old traits for engineers or mortar engineers these days, okay? 6,000 range is 4 times that amount, and that's why you were getting peppered so heavily in that map before. Bloodstone Fen has become much more pleasant to fly around in, which is nice as the population wanes away from there just a little bit. Another thing I was really happy to see, if you remember when Bloodstone Fen came out, they released a node for your home instance where you could harvest blood rubies every day. You had to buy it, but it was a cool little reward for the map. Then when Ember Bay came out, we had petrified wood, and there was no home instance thing. Why? Well, maybe they just forgot about it. Maybe it was an oversight. Well, as of this patch, that's been rectified. So you can now get a petrified wood home instance node, which is awesome. As a player who continuously seeks to max his home instance out, that's always one of those fun things for me that I'm quite happy about. All right, so the last little thing of general changes, by the way, is Black Lion chests. And I really don't want to linger on this too long, but it doesn't appear in the patch notes anyway, but it's pretty interesting what's happening here. You might have remembered in one of the recent patches they did, they changed the way the Black Lion chests work. So these are the items that drop from mobs, and then you buy keys on the gem store, you open it, and you're supposed to get random goodies. And they've always been a bit mediocre, right? I've always been pretty lukewarm to the system. Other games have certainly done far better with systems like this, and their companies a lot more money. It's obvious that ArenaNet were looking at this, okay? So we saw a change last patch or so that decided around Halloween that Black Lion chests were going to be themed after certain things depending on what time of year it was. So if you buy Black Lion chests at Halloween, you're guaranteed to get Halloween-y based things out of it. And they added a new right-click preview system so you can see all your potential goodies and how rare they are and all that kind of stuff. Well, now with this new patch, the Halloween chests have rolled out and we see what they're doing even when it's not a festival. So they're now like Shiver Peaks chests. That's what they are. So there's a new type of item that hooks into a new thing in the new map I talk about on that dedicated video, but you get like Frost Dye pack is now available. There's a new outfit which is Bram's Living World Season 3 outfit. There's a new type of item altogether called a Vantage Point item, the Bitter Frost Vantage Point, and when you double click it, it takes you to a really high vantage point in the mountains with a view of the new map. There are no services in that area, but it's kind of like, you know, those services that they've been dropping in, and that's what they've done. They've like themed the Black Lion chest around all those kinds of things now. So there has been a bit of an update, and they're now Shiver Peaks chests. That's pretty cool. I won't talk about it every patch note, but since now we see what the system is, I thought I'd let you guys into the loop. And so those are kind of general changes. I do want to talk about another new feature that came into the game. Nothing like salvage all, though I've got my eye out for other big feature changes, hopefully, that will continue to come. But something I think is quite huge, and I don't really think people should gloss over, and it's kind of related to World vs. World, which had some changes, all right? It's called simple nameplates. So simple nameplates is the idea that you when you turn this on, instead of while you're in World vs. World seeing an enemy player called Yax Bend Assaulter or Yax Bend Invader or whatever, okay? Instead of that, you will instead just see a dot with the color that that player is aligned to. So if they're from like the red Borderlands, there'll be a red player, okay? Like a little red dot. And this is really cool. What you guys should appreciate is nameplates. And when the devs do stuff like add mastery points that appear above your head, and when they do stuff like have titles appear above your head, and when they do stuff like have your PvP league appear above your head, this all becomes actually, and especially in World vs. World, a huge defining aspect of the aesthetic of the game, all right? Like, it's a massive part of the user interface. It doesn't matter how beautiful and luscious and wonderful your environments are, if a good 40 to 50% of the screen in massive Zerg battles is just taken up by all this meaningless text and UI. See, in World vs. World, and in a lot of other places in the game too, PvE, when you're running around in large Zergs, you're seeing all these nameplates, but you can't really discern much meaning, can't extract much meaning out of that. All that's important to you is what team they're on, really, and then when you click them, or if you're following someone's target, you can get more information later, like their class and so forth. So this simple nameplate thing, I love the sound of. It drops everything to just a dot. You'll get a great impression of how many players are around still, but it frees up so much more of the screen to look beautiful, and it allows Guild Wars 2 to be beautiful. And that new Desert Borderlands, for example, no matter what you think about the mechanics, it is a stunning map. So this could be great for streamers who are streaming World vs. World and hoping to capture and retain audiences of people interested in the game. This should be great for all videos and everything, and just people's experiences in World vs. World as we go forwards. So I'm quite excited about the simple simple nameplates, and I'm curious to see how that actually looks on live when I can see how it feels, because so far I've not really had a chance. So that could be a big dramatic change I don't think we should gloss over. And so, really, that's about it. Lots of bug fixes, but again, there's always lots of bug fixes. I'm just kind of skipping over them. Next, I kind of want to talk about fractals, which is really the big remainder of what I have to say in this video. So, fractals had a lot of changes. They've had a lot of changes mostly throughout the year. Quite often, I find myself skipping over those when I do these videos for you guys. I like to talk about the things I'd want to watch in a video, and usually I wouldn't be that interested in fractal stuff. However, I have to say, guys, fractals have had a massive turnaround since the start of Heart of Thorns, a massive turnaround. They have become a lot more cohesive. They've started to make a lot more sense. They've had a lot of the weird bloat and oddity stuff cut away from them. They've been refined heavily, and they've got the TLC that they really needed. There does seriously seem to be a lot of focus on fractals right now, and it's led to me really enjoying them lately. In fact, I would say fractals and going for like the infinite potions, and I got lucky enough to get an infinite fractal tonic the other day. These things have been some of the more rewarding experiences that I've ever had in Guild Wars 2, including the raid rewards, which are very, very high in quality and value, but, you know, they haven't given me the same feeling that fractals have. So I have a lot to say about fractals. And they've got a lot of patch notes here, so I will go through them. I'll try not to linger for too long. Now, before this, you guys might remember, ArenaNet had expressed two interests with fractals. Not just to refine the systems, but they wanted to add new ones, which this patch did, and we have a dedicated video on, but also to overhaul old fractals. So they did a dedicated overhaul, first of all, on Cliffside, then they looked at Swamp and Snowblind, then they made some other small changes. So there's no one major overhaul in this patch, I guess, again, because they've added the new Nightmare fractal, but there have been many tweaks and fixes, and so I want to quickly go through those. So the Dolphin fractal, Aquatic Ruins, the one where you're swimming as the dolphin through, that actually has a branch. You can either go through the Dark Room or you can be a dolphin. And it used to be in the original version of fractals that it was just a 50-50 odds which one would be the route you'd go through. But then they changed it to only be depending on scale. But what that means is most players like me who just do the last one in the progression every day, or whenever it comes up for the daily, we never get to see the Dark Room anymore. It's always dolphin, 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 and it's boring. Well, this patch changed that. Yay! So I do actually quite like that. It's now random again. So sometimes I'll get to see the Dark Room, sometimes I'll get to be a dolphin. Awesome. Next, they made some little changes to Uncategorized. You know, that staircase you run up with the bullet hell laser lightning beams that come down. Well, that used to be really annoying to deal with because it would hit pets, it would hit minions. It was just a nasty thing. It would kill you at the bottom of the stairs and you'd have to wait ages to res and try again. Well, they have stopped it hitting pets. They've made it so that if you do get hit by it and you fail, yes, you'll go back to the bottom of the stairs, but if you would die from the damage, you'll just instantly res and you'll get to go again. They've made that generally a lot more fun to play through. To the point, actually, I'd love if that staircase was much longer and they keep playing with that, because that is kind of a fun little thing now. They changed the Dredge fractal quite a lot. It's an interesting change I think everyone's going to be happy about, because Dredge fractal remains one of the longer ones, one of the more punishing ones in terms of the coordination it asks of you and your pug allies. Well, they are Dredge in Underground, and that means that as such, you've never been able to blind them there, except maybe a couple of varieties that slip through the cracks, like in Sorrow's Embrace. Well, this patch says they've now opened their eyes, and you can blind the Dredge there. I guess it's kind of a shame that these Dredge are now inconsistent with the rest, but this makes that fractal way easier. It makes it way more counterable in terms of the kind of things that you can bring to get through some of those encounters, and I think a lot of people will appreciate it. It will be a bit less frustrating. Speaking of cutting away frustration, the Volcanic fractal, this is the Grawl one where you go through the volcano, you land at the bottom and kill that giant guy. Well, people could die sometimes on little lava pits, and when this would happen, the lava pits used to damage you even when you were defeated, so it was almost impossible to res someone. Now, this patch has changed that, so you can res people. The lava won't kill people while defeated. On that, you might think, why do the devs keep making the fractals easier and easier? They're already a bit too easy. What I think this probably comes down to a bit more is just that very often you'd be in odd, frustrating situations where new players would try to res their friends in the middle of the encounter. only to find later that the body gets damaged by the lava, and then keep trying, and they think that they can outdo it, but then they can't, and people just get frustrated with one another. It's just not clear, so they just decided to get rid of it. I think that's probably what they were going for, rather than the idea that they want everybody rezzing each other from defeated in combat, which I think they probably don't, just like within the raids too. Alright, so a bigger change to Fractal, by the way. They've added a new daily recommended. So before this patch came out, there were only 2 Fractals that ArenaNet would recommend to you to do for daily, and they'd give you your Fractal research page, which you use to work on your legendary backpack and all that stuff. And one of them was within the first 25 Fractals, and the other one was within the next 25. Well, now there's a daily tier 3, which means if you do all your dailies every day, like I do, you're now going to be able to spend even longer in there and be rewarded for even longer in there, and push all your way up to 75 a little bit easier. I think that should be pretty cool. Another little thing they did as well is they moved all the daily Fractal stuff into the daily category, so it's now next to daily Bloodstone Fen, daily Ember Bay, daily Bitterfrost Frontier, daily Fractals. I love this. This is so cool, and I can't wait to see Guild Wars 2 keep growing and growing and see all these new things keep popping up, so players can log in each day, and it's really obvious, hey, here's what's some real bang for my buck in terms of rewards. Which of these many different things can I pick from? And let's go check out that area of the game, so that should be cool. Another change that really excited me with Fractals is there are infinite potions in there right now, guys, which are really huge, like 25% reduced incoming damage kind of stuff. Really, really powerful, potent, difficult, rare things to get that will spend you, I see you spending a lot of time in there. Well, some of us have got all 3 potions. I nearly have all 3 if I trade in my Fractal Tonic. And for those people, it's a bit of inventory clutter. Well, they've added a new Mystic Forge recipe that allows you to combine the mobility potion, the defensive potion, and the offensive potion all together into an amazing Omni Potion, which is just like this insane thing that does everything all at once with just one inventory slot. I know that sounds minor, but what can I say? I'm into Fractals, so that sounds cool. Another thing they did was they removed the Aqua Breather recipes that you get as a reward from one of the basic, like the cracked encryption chests. They just got rid of it. The reason for this isn't that they're trying to, you know, make Fractals less rewarding by getting rid of your Ascended Aqua Breather recipes. It's because a lot of people have got to the point where they've already unlocked all of those recipes, and it's just kind of annoying that you just delete it. You'd get it and you delete it. You'd get it and you delete it. So they stopped it being a reward there on RNG, and they've just added a vendor. I think that's fine. They could have kept it as a very rare reward, just made it even rarer, but whatever. I mean, this should really be kind of ignorable anyway, because the new map, spoiler, offers new Ascended Aqua Breathers anyway, and I think most people will get them from the new map rather than Fractals in the future, but there you go. And then the last change is that if you wipe in Fractals now, everyone's cooldowns will be instantly reset, just like in raids. I find this kind of weird. In raids, it makes sense, because raids are very much difficult encounter, tiny little bit of fluffy filler, difficult encounter, difficult encounter. It's like encounter, encounter, encounter. Fractals are much more dungeony or personal story-y in that they're not really encounter traditionally, but they sort of flow through a lot of stuff. And then the idea of people just resetting their cooldowns in this way might not work so well for that kind of content. But it also seems like with the new Fractal, with the Chaos Fractal and so forth, the Fractals team is acting a bit like the Raids team, and they're making their Fractals encounter, encounter, encounter too. And so then maybe it's a bit more appropriate. The only thing the Fractals still don't have, and was not implemented in this patch, I'm hoping they do it at some point, is the /GG command to suicide yourself and restart an encounter if you like. I reckon Fractals will eventually get that. So, there you go, guys. The last thing with the Fractals is, yes, indeed, there is an entirely new one with some new rewards, some new non-linear stuff. I really regret that last time they added a new Fractal, the Chaos one, I didn't talk well enough about it. So this time, on this patch, I've actually reserved some full space to do just that. I really encourage you, if you want to hear these kinds of details, go back to the portal for this release, A Crack in the Ice, and you can see all that juicy stuff about the new map, the immersive tour, the Fractals, and all of that good stuff. So thanks, guys. A little bit lighter on the features this patch, I must say. It's nothing as mind-blowing again as, for example, when we got Salvage All, but some nice goodies here and there, and I guess we're just waiting for the devs to blow our faces off maybe a little bit more in the future. Cheers, guys. Check out the link on the end slate in just a second to head back to the portal, and I'll see you next time.